Hi everyone, I'm Kana and I just finished week 3 of Code Platoon Software Bootcamp. There are 12 more weeks to go and I just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about what I learned this past week, what it was like to be a brand new beginner starting to learn to program, and and a special topic of vet tech this week. The main topics we learned this week were data structures, regular expressions, and recursion. So data structures, we had a special lecture come in from Apple, and she talked to us a little bit about why it's important to structure data specifically for your use case or how you plan to use it. She described data structures in a way that was quite interesting. She said, look at a game box, and by game box I mean board game box, and how they store the different pieces. So there's usually a slot that's cut out for cards or another one for pieces. It depends on what game you're playing. But data structures is sort of the same way. You structure where data should go, and then the user puts in their specific data into each of those structures. So I thought that was a pretty interesting way of thinking about data structures. The next topic was regular expressions. It's sort of like a search. Like, you know, when you go into a document and you hit search for a certain word. So regular expressions are a way to describe a general word you want to find or a general phrase you want to find and have the computer search for that particular phrase. And finally, we talked about recursion. And the best example of this that I saw online was if you are in a line, say you're in the front of this long line, and someone comes and asks you, how many people are there in this line? And you turn around and you can't really tell. So you turn around, you ask the guy behind you, hey, how many people are behind you? And he turns around and asks the person behind him, how many people are behind you? And this keeps going all the way down until you get to the last person. The last person will look behind them and say, there's no one behind me. So then they look back up and answer, there's no one behind me. So the next person can say, there's one person behind me. And it keeps going, adding up one per person until you get back to the front. And at this point, you know how many people are in the line. So recursion is sort of like that, solving the same problem with smaller and smaller sets. So I was reminded this week about how hard it is to start learning programming. Learning programming is unlike learning anything else I've ever learned before. So usually when you go to school and you learn history or you learn math, you're given a book, you read the book, you listen to the teacher, and you do some problems. And as long as you understood what the book said and what the teacher said, you could pretty much finish the problem because the scope of the problems you had were within the bounds of what you learned. With programming, however, I found that programming is too encompassing to learn everything before you start problem solving. So you just have to take a problem and try to solve it, and when you get stuck, you just Google it. So say one of the first problems I had was find how many A's there are in this sentence. So I didn't really know how to start, and I just Googled it. How do you find all the A's in a sentence? Python. And then you read a lot, you start learning more, and then you can solve the problem. And each time you solve a problem, you build the building blocks and you get more tools so that each subsequent problem is easier to solve. If you're out there watching this because you're starting to program and you want to learn this, and you're looking at the bootcamp application process and seeing all these problems that you need to solve, don't give up. It does get easier. The more problems you solve, the easier it will get. The special topic for this week is vet tech. Vet tech is a pilot program put on by the VA to experiment with letting people use their GI benefits for things like boot camps. And this is what I'm using to fund my Code Platoon bootcamp. It is a 5-year program as of this point, and we are on year 4. So the fiscal year starting next year, 2022, will be the last year that the pilot program runs. Hopefully they continue some version of this after that. But next year is it if you want to try to use it. And one of the tricks is to try to get a boot camp that starts as close to the beginning of the fiscal year as possible, because sometimes the funding runs out by the end of the fiscal year. So fiscal year starts in October. My class started October 4th. So I was pretty sure I would have funding, and it was pretty easy to apply for. You just apply for your GI Bill benefits and then apply especially for vet tech. If you aren't eligible for vet tech, other people in my class have used many other funding sources. So there is the GI Bill, but with the GI Bill, you have to go in person if you use your actual GI Bill benefits. And then there's SkillBridge, where for the last few months of your time on active duty, you can do an internship or come to something like this boot camp. So some of the other students in my class are actually using SkillBridge to come to Code Platoon. There are a few other ones that are out there, but besides those, Code Platoon themselves provide scholarships. Their goal is that no one has to pay the whole cost of the program out of pocket. And they have various scholarships that are quite easy to apply for. When I was filling out my application, there were little boxes for you to check for all the scholarships that you are eligible for and would like to apply for. Now, I don't actually know the rest of the process because I did use vet tech, or I am using vet tech, so I didn't check any of those boxes, but they have been very helpful in answering questions. So if you have questions about that, you could definitely reach out to them by going on their website and getting the appropriate email address. That's all I have for today. I hope you're finding this useful, and I will see you next week.